Now, college has taken a number of steps in this direction. One, what Ministry of Labor, Prashad Saab has told. We have run number of courses for the unskilled unemployment to make them skillful by becoming a partner from the Ministry of MSME. And we have recently did the 75 students for the students on the mobile training and some other courses. And in fact, that gives the employment, that's one. Second thing, when we are calling the student and all these courses which we have run, we are running after the office hour, after 4 to 8 or 4 to 7. Students are not coming, that is one of the issue. Now, if we want to achieve the target, what is required? All this industrialization, we have tied up with number of industries in the Ghaziabad area. And the industries are also coming, we can take up until and unless this industrialization, the training which is required as part of the course, let this should be part of the curriculum of the education system. And then certainly we can achieve that. Thank you.
My name is Venkatram. I'm an ICT consultant. One aspect that I would like to point out to the distinguished members of the panel is with regard to how the educational institutions, the infrastructure is set up. Most of them spend their time and resources in acquiring real estate and in designing infrastructure which is completely dependent on artificial lighting, completely dependent on artificial heating and ventilation. And as a result, for example, if you take Faridabad as an example, where there are more than 20 engineering colleges, there is no grid-supplied electricity. Consequence, they do not have enough power to operate any of the air conditioning ventilation mechanism. They do not have enough power to run the equipment in the lab, but they've gone and invested in land under the principle that from the day you invest in land, it appreciates, but any capital equipment, it depreciates from the time you place your purchase order. As a result, they do not have anything in the labs which provides the kind of hands-on experience that's needed. They do not even have power to run the geysers in the hostel in the bathrooms.
I am M.S. Pillai from Jaipur Engineering College and Research Center. I have heard very carefully, especially the solutions, probable solutions that all the speakers have advanced in dealing with quality education rather than quantity, then how to link digital learning as an enabler. You have also talked about leadership, flexibility, then things like autonomy, then creating intellectual capital. And one of the primary requirements to do before you can start developing the organization is the control regime. I think Rajshekharan Pillai was talking about, to make the process of monitoring as an enabler rather than controlling that kills the initiative of the private sector. As you rightly pointed out, that in India, as we have seen, the private sector is making it happen. Okay? Then in that case, recently, if you have seen, a lot of private sector initiatives come in the higher education sector, not necessarily to make money, but there are other things to happen. Then, how do you enable this situation? We can continue to talk about a controller, all these things for another 5, 6, 10 years, but somewhere we have to break this barrier. It is not a question, but it is my concern.
My name is Mahajan, and I have about 40 years experience in IT, corporate management, corporate planning, and as an entrepreneur. I'm right now come back to India to be a part of civil society. I have just one observation. We all talk about a demographic dividend, and we are producing about 45,000 odd people every day who are entering the job market. And I don't think we are giving jobs to maybe 10, 15,000. That straightaway means that we are a potential to be Talibanized. Because once you educate a person, it's bad enough if he's illiterate, then he's got a certain amount of potential. If he's educated and he doesn't get a job or doesn't get a job which suits him, he's dangerous. So that's something which, the second observation I just wanted to make is that we have, let's look at it as a supply chain. We're pumping in 45,000 or whatever that number, children, and they go through various stages, school, college, this thing. Each of these systems are totally dysfunctional. When you enter the primary school, he's taught something, and you hear horror stories that a class 6 person cannot read what a class 2 person is meant to do. After he passes out of school, or supposedly at that, then he goes to a teach shop if his parents are rich enough or he's got some potential. Why? He's studying for an IIT exam or whatever it is. Then he goes through IIT. IIT people do very well. I think it's not because of the IITs. It's because if you choose 5% of the population, you're going to get geniuses or whatever it is. And those guys are the guys who make it to IIMs and IITs. So let's not say it's because of our institution. Probably some of it, but a lot of it is because the input itself was good. Then when they come out, they get into the job. And 60%, as somebody was rightly pointing out here, of graduates don't get a job. There is something certainly totally dysfunctional. And we all in this room should admit it. Now, the best point I want to bring out is, we are talking about all these various policies, and all these policies are taking the sweet time. Every day we are adding 45,000 people. We are adding to this potential explosive thing. We have no time, one. Secondly is, if we are anyway going to be revamping it, and you've got different silos, you've got HRD, you've got MCI, you've got AICT, all these silos have their own vested interests and their own vested power struggles. Let us at least design a system that let's treat it as a national asset and make use out of it. Integrate these systems. You can keep those things separate, but thank you.
I'm very sorry. We'll not be able to take any more questions. We have a lot of sessions on specific. Sorry, Dr. Seema Pariyar, we have few more queries.
Just one suggestion. There are no questions. There are no questions as such.
Yes, over tea we can actually have a lot of discussion, and we have a lot of sessions. I'm very sorry. So can we just request our panelists to kindly respond to the queries that they have received so far?
I just have one issue, because he mentioned about the research. I'm basically a researcher also. I think peer reviewing, publication in refereed journals, looking at the impact factor of journals, then research assessment exercise, these are the things which are necessary for ensuring quality in research. Even with all these things, even without all these things, we do not have the minimum level of research personnel. If the academies in this country, for example, whether it be Indian National Academy of Engineering, Indian National Science Academy, Indian Academy of Sciences, National Academy of Sciences, Allahabad, in the science and engineering sector I'm mentioning. Similarly, we have ICSSR, Indian Council for Social Science Research. We have the National Academy of Letters, that is the Sahitya Academy. There are organizations of this kind. Look at how they assess the performance of people. They have very specific standards. For example, publication in refereed journals. And then not just publication. For the last 5 years or 10 years, how many of his publications have been used and cited by others? And then, not only then impact factor of the journal in which that publication is appearing or has appeared. So there are set patterns, and such things are happening also in our own public institutions in this country, whether it be academies. If these things can happen in such academies, such institutions, our university should also be able to do such things. There are certain universities looking at it. For example, again, whenever we talk about all these things, we talk about the developed countries. Without every year, along with the annual report of the institution, the research assessment exercise RIE rating, it is called RIE rating. RIE rating of each university has to be presented along with the annual report to the parliament of the country. I think
it is high time. Of course, we started with National Assessment and Accreditation Council and all that. So it is high time we should slowly imbibe some of these good practices in our universities also. When I introduce this thing, definitely, it is for enhancing the, when we link all this with this career advancement scheme and all that, I think there will be dilutions of some kind or another. For example, I remember that once a few years ago, there was an order or a circular that all students, all research students who are going to submit the PhD thesis by the end of this year, by end of that particular year, only 2 more months were there. By December 31st of that year, they will be exempted from the net. What happened is, in the history of the in this country, the maximum number of theses were submitted in December that year. And it was submission. It was submission, not even award of degree. So sometime for some convenience, we just bring out something and that will reduce the quality. I think it has to be performance linked. I'm a teacher. I know teachers there are very responsible teachers also. There has to be some sort of a performance linked assessment for teachers at all levels. And we as teachers, we should welcome it, we should propose it, and only when things can improve. So regarding the infrastructure, somebody is going for real estate, what can we do? Because they are not, you have to consider it as not as an education institution.
No, I think, so the problem there is, why do people invest in infrastructure? Because we don't have a sound accreditation system, so that every second year or third year, we review their performance, not only in terms of infrastructure, but in terms of qualitative parameters. Take, for example, enrollment rate, or dropout rate, or pass-out rate, or employment rate, and finally, with the satisfaction of the employers, that rate also is very, very important. If we monitor the performance every second year or third year, then this kind of approach probably will disappear. Then people will not invest in infrastructure, they will invest in the hard infrastructure which is required for improving the quality of education. That is something which is one point was raised about jobless education. Yes, that is very, very important and disquieting feature, and that is happening because we don't have very strong industry linkage. If we have a strong industry linkage, then probably whatever we teach according to the requirement of the industry in different sectors of economy. And if we are able to ensure, then probably this joblessness will by and by disappear. One point which was raised was about the skill training should be made compulsory as part of the curriculum. That is what the German system is. Dual system of education in Germany is that after first 10 years of schooling, every child has to undergo occasional training. He has to enroll in some company as an apprentice, and for next 3.5 or 4.5 years, depending upon which course he chooses, he has to be in the company. 1 day or 2 days in a week, he is in the institution, that is called Occasional Training Institute, and remaining 3 or 4 days, he is in the industry. And that is how this dual system operates. And anybody you can think of, a minister or a civil servant or a prime minister or a chancellor, everybody will be from that system. So apart from being what he is today, he will also know some occasional skill. That is how the German system developed, and that is supposed to be the best anywhere in the world. And many, about a dozen countries follow that system in Europe. We are trying to bring in some elements of that, though it appears to be very simple, but it's very complicated, because in a country like India, where the industrial development is not evenly distributed, it becomes very difficult to really develop industry linkage one-to-one from school to or college to industry or university to industry, and therefore we need to devise mechanism so that by and by probably we move in that direction. Thank you.
Before we close the session and before I propose